So you went from the warehouses and the raves to, I think it was sort of next step was a formal education in textile design.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mad one, isn't it?
How do you? Yeah.
Literally, like when we left school, we kind of wasn't going into work. You know, the city doesn't really have jobs, and it was either you literally go and work building caravans or in a massive factory on a frozen food factory. It's like, I don't want to do that. You know, I believe that what I like drawing, I'm like painting, I like doing stuff, and like that was my option. It was like, look, I want to go to art college. I want to go somewhere that I can continue doing this through the day as well. I don't want to have to do it at night or at the weekend. So yeah, we went to like sixth form college and did like a BTEC in, like I wanted to do graphic design because of all the flyers at the time with the rave scene. It was like amazing. I want to design all these things, but apparently I wasn't good enough at it. And they said, look, you're really good. We think you should be doing textile design. I'm like, what is that? I mean, I didn't even know where wallpaper came from. People just take that stuff for granted, you know.
Yeah.
So I really didn't really understand it, and I was like quite dismayed at first. And literally within a month, I realised that I was in the, because all my mates that got into graphics were having to draw this typeface. It was like they're going to a concentration camp of creativity. Whereas I was like, oh yeah, look, I'm going out drawing in the city centre this weekend. And they were like, what is that for you? I was like, yeah. So it was a beautiful kind of little happy accident that I ended up doing that. But for me, I got to a stage after you leave school and you get into like 16, 17 where, I mean, I've got to be honest, yeah, life wasn't actually brilliant on that my side of town, really. Do you know, like, there wasn't many jobs, there wasn't loads of opportunity, and like people did start getting into drugs and stuff, and there was always a bit of a problem like that, and I wanted to avoid that at all costs because like it came pretty close with friends, you know, and I saw some pretty. I went through some quite hard years with some things, you know, and for me, escaping my hometown was the ambition. I needed to go away. I needed to. There was no other way I could have got out my hometown without being able to go to like an art college or university or college. But I had no money. I was from quite a poor background, so it's like it was an aspiration that felt well out of reach. It was like, wow, how do I achieve this? How do I get there? How do you know? You can't even afford the bus fare into town. You know, how am I going to get up to these colleges? And I did go through quite a few interviews and stuff like that, and I was just really fortunate that some of the people saw, because I had to build a portfolio up of work, you know, that you carry around. It wasn't like today with the digital stuff, literally getting on trains and the handles breaking on these portfolios.
Massive A1 thing.
Right? Yeah, really heavy, you know, and it's like you're dragging it into this place and then out into, and yeah, I was really, really like blessed that I managed to get into these textile courses, and literally the tutors there, they said, look, your work was crap, but you was the only guy that applied, and I couldn't be doing with another year of 40 girls all arguing. So that's literally how I managed to kind of get through there. But I ended up at Edinburgh College of Art, and there were some of the best years I spent, really. And I think, if I'm really honest, that's really what opened my mind a lot more about, because then if you imagine, then I'm just wanting to do graffiti, I'm just wanting to paint walls, I'm wanting to be this artist I become when I was at school. And when you're turning like 17, 18, 19, you do think you rule the world, you think your ideas are gold. And that carries on through your 20s, and it's the energy you have as a young person. You do think that everything that went before you is nonsense, and whatever you're bringing to the table is right. And that's what got me through that, because I found myself in a situation where I was suddenly meeting middle class people and quite wealthy people as well, and they were my contemporaries, but there was also my competition for this attention to achieve the results, because obviously when you're doing something quite aesthetic like textile design, you're in a room with 30 other people that are doing beautiful things, and if somebody's gone and spent £500 on velvet, no one's going to come and look at your ripstop nylon that you managed to get for £2 a meter, and you're trying to make new Berghaus jackets. That was the situation. But I was like, when I was at the art college, like I was doing stuff that the tutors just didn't understand. Obviously, they've never seen spray cans before, and I'm bringing it in and doing this stuff, and like transferring large photocopies, like taking like billboard paste up style stuff, which wasn't popular back then. There wasn't the street art there is today. You know, this was like, why are you doing your textile design degree show on the streets of Edinburgh on bins? Well, this is going to be the new thing, you know. It's like literally, I was doing like installations on. I think it was inspired by Phil Frost. There was an artist called Phil Frost. There is an artist called Phil Frost, a skater, and he'd made a video where he'd gone and done all his artwork over these air vents that let out the air in the subways from New York, and that was amazing because it was like, oh, this is the way, you know. Everyone's into just kind of normal textile design floral stuff, and I'm like, no, I want these big photographs of warehouses, all like, but I need to take them on the wall and take it off the wall and then put it onto the fabric. There was the whole idea of bringing the outside in and taking the inside out, and that kind of did win me quite a lot of praise. You know, it was different at the time, so, and I think that fed into my graph. The idea that I can create something quite beautiful and delicate and quite sensitive, and also like I did actually nearly get chucked out 2 or 3 times because of my English. And, you know, you have to do a lot of written work. You have to do a lot of essays and stuff like that. And I wasn't really that brilliant at that. I didn't have a computer to type it all up. So a man was typing it up on a typewriter. Dissertations, you know, like 3,000 word dissertations on an electric typewriter. And I think one of them was about acid house, how acid house influenced graphic design for years to come. And it still is, which was good. And then I think that was my main one, but then it was so badly spelt and badly composed that I had to do like a referral where literally it was like an X Factor where you have to, or MasterChef where you have to do something to save your life in a way. So I had to write about the abstract expressionists and do this thing. Like I was given all this personal tutoring and stuff like that, like some special, because they wanted me to succeed, but they were like, look, you aren't meeting the grades, but you need to do this. And I was like, so it really got me to think outside of the box. It got me to think outside of just graph. It got me to think about all these other artists and all these other painters and all these other sculptors and all these other designers and how they influence creativity. And I was already amazed by New York graffiti and how the trains were getting painted and the big murals were getting done with just spray cans. But I started to impair that with Chinese brush painting or you know, going out and doing watercolors, or literally the idea that you can treat fabric like this or use repeat patterns and stuff. So it expanded my creative output massively, and I'm really blessed by that. I don't think they really taught me anything. I felt like I was always teaching myself stuff, and I think that's what the beauty of it is. It's all already in there. You just need somebody that inspires you to find it. So yeah, they were good times, and my mates would come up and visit, and we'd go out and do pieces. So the graphing was always there in the background. It was like my weekend hobby in a way, or after the pub we'll go tagging up and stuff. And it still is like that. It always is like that. It's something I always fall back on. Or as like I said today, I went for a little bike ride, and the motivation was to go and see a Hall of Fame down the end of the river. It's like, probably wouldn't have gone if there wasn't all these people that I know have done loads of pieces there. And it's like, it was really good just to go get a bit of sunshine and look at some graph.
It's weird. I mean, because I'm in Walthamstow, and obviously, you know, where you did that piece, we've got the similar thing. We've got the maps of where all the pieces are, and it just happened to be that I drove out somewhere today because I had to go and pick something up. And just whenever I'm sort of out and about, I just check the quick map, and I just happened to notice I was 2 streets away from one of your pieces. Like, oh, I'll just pop around the corner and see that. I'd not seen it before, so yeah, I find the same thing. We got so many pieces around us now because of all the Wood Street Wall stuff. that we've got, you know, and you've got one on the Ravenswood as well. That's now got like half a dozen pieces on. So it's the same thing. I often find that if we pop out for a walk, you kind of like do the route around one or two of the new pieces that's gone in and go and see what's up. Good. It makes sense then, because I was trying to piece together how you go from that kind of influence and college to the style you have, but you've kind of like told that story about it. That's actually how, is that sort of when it formed then? Because it's a very distinct.
Well, not really, like, right. It went on like in a parallel in a way, and I was doing this, and it felt like that was my proper job, doing this design stuff. But then the graph thing was something what was a little bit of a release from that for a while, and I found like I got to a point where I left Edinburgh and I moved down to Bristol, which was an amazing decision, and one of the best ever. This was 1997, 8. I'd spend a bit of time going down there because my friend from Hull had moved down there, Paris. He writes Paris, and that's who I started doing graffiti with the first nights. The guy that I was talking about when we go out into the park with all the glue sniffers and we're trying to go through. So I'd always go and visit him in Bristol, and effectively I'd spend that much time there that I thought, well, I might as well just move there in a way, you know. And I came down for going on around me. If I keep focused on this art, which is a challenge, in the same way when I first picked up spraying can and trying to write my name was a challenge, doing art when you come with an accent like mine, from a background like mine, it wasn't your obvious choice for a career. So it had to be something you really was feeling. And it had to be something that was a reaction as well. It was a reaction to the fear that I didn't ever really want to go back. As much as I love my hometown, I love my friends, I love where I'm from, I didn't want to go back there. I always wanted to try and achieve self-independence. I had to have independence. You know, there was no other way. I'm not dependent on somebody. I have to make it work. It has to be something that is desirable. It can't be something that is an angry reaction to something. It has to be something that's a beautiful reaction to something that can be employed. That's something that can be delivered. Because when I'm angry, I'll go out and I'll write on stuff. I'll go smash stuff up. We all do that. But that's not something that you can make a career from or a living from. And I think that's the misconception that people have about graff. There is that element to it where, yeah, graffiti is vandalism. It's done by people that, you know, have no care for their society they're in and they want to wreck their environment. There is that element. But there's also the element that is completely the opposite, and it's done by people that really believe in making a better world and really believe in transforming that grey wall into something you could walk into. And I think that's the misconception of it, or the misinterpretation of it. You know, the way that graffiti has to be one way. And I think, yeah, my work doesn't look like graffiti, but I don't want it to look like graffiti. I wanted it, when I moved to Bristol, I wanted it to look different to everything else. I wanted it to almost annoy other graffiti writers, because that was how you'd got the attention. You know, if it was looking like everybody else's, you weren't getting the attention. You weren't getting the, and you don't go writing on someone else's wall if you don't want attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it's about. I'm not ashamed to say that. Like, you become an artist because it's not just about hiding away and being solitary. It's a plus. You want attention for what you're doing. You want to share what you do with someone else. You want.
Is there some irony? You've gone somewhere and trained to design wallpaper, and then you've come out, and the last thing you want to do is create wallpaper.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the other point. I was trying to say, it's like I was always coming at it from a different angle. I was like, well, okay, you go do your floral velvets, which are beautiful, by the way, but I'm going to try and reinvent waterproof fabrics. I'm more interested in fiber optics, and you know, this was impossible at the time. I mean, the fiber optics only exist with one of those desk decorations, you know, that had a tree. Now you've got fiber optic dresses that have, you know, like I ruined the knitting machine because I was trying to knit with metal thread because I was inspired by Canterbury cathedrals and what is it, flying buttresses or something. And this, I remember the tutor, she was quite hot actually, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about that. I really like what you was doing." I was like, "Yeah, but it's just a really expensive machine." Yeah, it's one of them things. You've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette.
When you paint, do you know what it's going to look like when you start? I
have a vision. Yeah, I do have a vision. There is like I do sketch like a lot of the walls that are successful, because not everything I do is. I've done some right clangers in my time, but that's what it's about. That's what you get when you go to a wall without a plan, if you know what I mean. If you're just going to make it up as you go, you've got to expect that it's not going to work every time. But the ones that do work, I have a little warm up, like a couple of days before. I'll be scribbling something and I'll keep doing the same thing just naturally, not trying to. It's like, oh, this is a bit weird. What's going on here? And it almost comes out of me. It's a bit like you can see on the horizon when a storm's coming, you know, the dark clouds. There'll be something that just I feel, it'll be like, oh, yeah, I've got this idea of this. And I went drawing the other day and it's starting to build up now already. I can see this next piece has got all these statues in it. And yeah, so I've just started drawing all these more figurative stuff and like how it'd have fabrics over it, but it'd be made of marble, you know. So I want to try and do that. Yes, so I do have a vision, but I let it be what it is. I don't try and suffer too much.
Yeah,
I like to have a plan.
You move at quite a pace.
Yeah,
and there's always movement, obviously, with the nature you put into your work. Is it necessary to move at that pace to kind of keep that pace in and that sort of fluidity in the work?
It comes back to the breakdancing thing. It's like a dance. It's like when you watch a good breakdancer, b-boy, whatever you want to call them, you see that they've really got this flow, they've got this movement, they've got this thing. Or a good DJ, you know, when they're doing all this beat juggling and the scratching, you can see that it's like a dance. They're not afraid to move their hands in a certain way. And I think with a painter as well, or like a musician, you know, any kind of like a guitarist, a good guitarist, they move fast. They're not afraid to get between the notes. It's not like they're copying something. And it's the same that I feel when I'm making a painting. It has to be like a full experience. It's not about precision. Precision's in there, there's loads of it, but it's about expression. And I think you need to be like a storm, I like to think of myself a bit like a whirlwind, a bit like a storm that rolls through and just leaves this kind of chaos behind.
They have a term for that. There's people in the more office-based world, like where I come from, they call those people whirlwinds. They say the whirlwinds. They say they're the people that come in, fuck shit up, and then leave the mess for everyone else to clean up.
Yeah, that's it. It's because that's the thing. I work with like a lot of my stuff has been about teamwork, with working with other artists. Like I'll do the background. They'll always wait for me to come and do stuff over the top of their piece or the background or something like that, because I'd have the confidence that I wouldn't be able to mess it up. I'd just be able to sit a vine over it, or a cable or a pipe going through it, and a drop shadow, because you have to be quite cocky like that. You know, it's like, look, let me just put this bit over there. They would never do that to anyone else, because they don't think like that. They don't think, oh, let's make it one piece. They just want to make their own piece and get the photograph and leave, which always frustrated me. But I was always like, look, if I'm painting next year, let's try and make a bigger wall, you know, let's take it all out. So I'd always be the background guy, and I think that's where the pictorial style comes from, you know, and that's where I managed to get the more Japanese-esque thing, because I like to play with people's perceptions. Like, if they're coming up and seeing us all painting, like loads of people painting a wall, you're often going to get someone that says, oh, I hate graffiti, you know, stop what you're doing, it's horrible. And I was like, well, if I can make it as beautiful as possible, as quick as possible, so that when anybody walks up, they're like, oh, carry on, yeah, I like that. At least I'm getting my fix of spraying a wall, but just because it doesn't look like it's a bombed out ghetto, you know. So, oh, I'll just do a sky. I'll do a nice sky first, and then everyone can start doing their lettering over the top. And we've got away with stuff because of that quite a few times, you know. You make it look like a mural, and then you get away with doing the graff. I let all the star writers come in and do their thing. Oh yeah, well that was part of the design.